From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Good Sunday afternoon. Welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Kate Walsh. A new year means new leadership for some communities in western Massachusetts. In November's mayoral elections, most voters re-elected their incumbent mayors, but two cities where new mayors were elected were Westfield and West Springfield. They also happen to be neighboring communities. So joining me now are Mayor Brian Sullivan of Westfield and Mayor William Reichelt of West Springfield. Thank you so much for being here today, and congratulations to both of you for your win and your
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Your inaugurations were just 2 weeks ago on January 4th, and so we have a lot to talk about, including the first weeks in office and the challenges ahead. We also want to give them a chance to compare and contrast the issues that each city has. So first, we'll give some background here. We'll start with you, Mayor Sullivan. You have some history of being in politics in Westfield. Tell us what that was and why you decided to run for mayor.
Well, I was on the city council for 18 years, and it was kind of a great time for me to step up and decide to run for mayor, take over the corner office and get some of the things that I want to see happen in Westfield changed and moved along. And it was just good timing for myself and the city at the same time, so we took advantage of that.
And your family has a history of...
Yes, we have. Actually, my brother was mayor for 14 years a while ago, and my brother Kevin is on the school committee presently, so we have been involved in the community for an awful long time.
Did you go to your brother before announcing you were going to run for mayor and say, hey, is this the right thing to do?
Of course I did. But I went to a lot of people and asked that question. Family first, obviously. I have two kids, Tori and Chris. They were the first two I asked. But then, asked a lot of people with history and things like that about timing and should I do it, and here's my situation. And we made the decision to go.
And when it comes to timing, was there anything in particular that was happening in Westfield that you just said, I really need to get in there and make a change about this? Or was it just in general, you knew Mayor Knapik was not going to run again?
Yeah, probably both. It was timing in regards to politics because of Mayor Knapik was going to move on, and I was at the point in time where it was a good opportunity for me to take this step forward. As well as there's a lot of things in the city that are happening right now that I got started and got the ball rolling on the council. I'd like to see finished, and then there's some new things that we have planned for the next couple of years.
All right, Mayor Reichelt, how about you? What made you want to run for mayor?
Well, I had that great opportunity to serve under Mayor Sullivan for a year and a half as the town attorney. At the time, it was a year. But before that, I'd been involved in Agawam as their attorney for 2 years and on the planning board and other committees, probably for close to 8. So I'd been involved in town for a while, not politically, always appointed, but from a legal perspective, I got a lot of experience of what we were doing, a lot of great mentoring from Mayor Sullivan. So I saw it as an excellent opportunity to take the next step. And since he, again, like Westfield, wasn't running, going back to the private sector, an opportunity to take over his office. And I had a cubicle before, so now I have a real office. It's pretty exciting.
Was it nerve-wracking for you to run?
Absolutely.
Not having...
Absolutely. It was very nerve-wracking, and it was tough from really announced back in May, and I continued working as the attorney full-time while I ran. I took a few weeks vacation before the regular election and a few days before the primary. So working full-time and then running afterwards full-time was, it was fun, but it was also nervous in the sense that, I'm running really for my job.
Absolutely, so, yeah. And as attorney, did you have certain things in mind that you knew you wanted to change or really have at the forefront of your agenda for if you were to become mayor?
Absolutely, and like Mayor Sullivan said, I was involved in a lot in the sense that as the attorney, I was brought in a lot of projects. Being on the planning board and different boards, I kind of had my hands in a few things that were going on. So I knew if I had the opportunity, what I would like to do and where I like to see the community go, and a lot of it is in the same direction that former Mayor Sullivan would have brought it, because I was brought in on a lot of that stuff. But I definitely have my own ideas, thoughts, over the years of being involved in the planning board, what I like to see happen, and so I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And how was it for both of you running for office, actually campaigning? That seems like it could be nerve-wracking to try to go up to a bunch of strangers in the community and ask for their support and try to prove to them that you're the best candidate. I mean, what were your thoughts?
There's nothing like knocking on someone's door and saying, hey, I'm Will Reichelt, I'm running for mayor, just here to see if you have any questions, comments, concerns, and sometimes you just say, oh, okay, thank you, and other times you could talk to them for 20 minutes, but just trying to run through your head what you're going to say when you knock on the door is an interesting experience. I'd recommend everyone try it at least once. It's a lot of fun.
You probably get to meet a lot of people, right?
Oh, it's invigorating. I mean, it's part of the process that you end up enjoying a lot. It's nerve-wracking, and you know, on election day, you hoped you did everything you planned to do and get it, but during the whole year, you know, you have people that are supporting you, you have people that are supporting the other side. You try to meet as many people, so it flew, but it took a long time.
Yeah.
You know, it was a great experience.
Yeah.
And you probably also have to really brag about yourselves, right? Why you're the best candidate. That's not something that we're told,
I was told
to do
repeatedly,
our whole lives.
well, you got to talk yourself up. You got to talk yourself up. I'm not used to that. But there, people want to hear where you came from, what you want to do, what makes you qualified.
You become very repetitive because you always have a different group of people in front of you that you're talking to, and you're saying the same story again and again and again, but it's the first time they're hearing it.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have to know your audience and things like that, but yeah, it's fun.
So election night, the results come in, you both find out that you've become mayor. What are your thoughts?
Got a lot of work out of me. You know, for the whole time, the whole campaign, you're talking about what you want to do, what you plan to do, what you would do if you're elected. Then you get elected and you realize, okay, now I got to go back and make sure all these things happen. Line up, you get your ducks in a row and figure out how you're going to do it.
That's right. That's right. The night of the election, I was off-site. I had a party at one location, but I was too nervous to be there for that. And so I watched the results and got the numbers from our campaign people. And it was just, from then on, I don't remember a lot that happened that night because it was just a lot
I agree.
of
It was
moving, shaking hands, getting hugs and congratulations and thanking people who had worked, you know, pretty much 12 months for you and things like that. So it was quite an experience to remember.
And so knowing that could happen on election night, you know, that you could really win, did you have to plan in the weeks ahead as to who you would want in certain offices, who you would want to be, you know, in certain positions behind you and helping you make that transition?
Yeah.
Or was it after you won that you really started thinking about that?
I think a little bit of both, and I'm doing that right now, really, just in the first couple of weeks of being in the administration, is who fits and who doesn't fit and things like that, and people that helped you and had ideas along the campaign trail, and now it's coming around to say, I remember we had this conversation and this person would be great and things like that. So it's a learning experience in regards to employees and things like that, but it's also, there's a lot of people willing to do work as long as you ask them. Mm-hmm. And you go back to the conversations you had and say, remember when we talked about that? I'm ready to put that together. Let's go. So there's people out there like that.
Is that how you feel as well?
Absolutely. And I worked with a lot of the people, most of the people in Town Hall as the attorney. So I knew a lot of the people, a lot of the players, and we have a lot of great people in West Springfield. And it goes to the same way. I've had an outpouring of volunteers in general that want to get on boards, that are willing to do other committees that I said I would create during the campaign. I'm just surprised how many people have really continued to come out. And I said that on both my inaugurations. So I really want you all to stay involved because the people are really what make a community so great.
That's right.
And so far they have.
Yeah.
Excellent. So you had a unique situation where Mayor Knappich resigned shortly after election night. So you became interim mayor until the official inauguration about 2 weeks ago. And of course you were inaugurated on a normal schedule in January. So tell us what it was like to start in November. Was that expected, and what did you think?
It wasn't expected. There was a couple times during the year that Mayor Knappich was actually interviewing for other jobs, so we knew at any time that could happen because I was president of the council, and by charter the president becomes acting mayor. When it happened, we were prepared just because we knew we were elected at that point in time and could take over, and it was a great 2 months. I mean, because being an acting mayor, you don't get to make too many decisions. You just kind of keep the ball rolling, and if emergencies come up, so you really get to sit back and watch how things work and how the process goes. And even though, and we were just talking about this earlier, 18 years on the city council, by the time I got to the mayor's office, you realized you don't know as much as you think you did. You don't know what happens to begin the process and how the process even gets going and what department heads you're talking to in regards to which thing. So it was a great learning experience.
Kind of a transition period as well?
Perfect transition period, yeah. I would recommend it if anyone to do it, but I look back on those 2 months and say, you know, I learned an awful lot so that when the inauguration came, we were ready to go.
So you were kind of forced into that transition period, so to speak, but I'm sure you had a transition period as well that you maybe did on your own, right? So could you talk about that?
Well, I transitioned while still being the attorney. Actually, former Mayor Sullivan came that night to my party and said, "I'll see you tomorrow morning as a town attorney," right? And so that next day I went back to work as a town attorney, but Mayor Sullivan had brought me in on a lot of stuff the whole time. So there was a lot of new things that I hadn't been brought into that I was, especially in the schools because they have their own separate attorneys, so I wasn't doing as much for them. But it was just every meeting now I'm being brought in on, every opportunity I have to sit with a department head and talk about other things that are outside my realm as the attorney to work on. And even still 2 weeks in, we're still bringing stuff to my desk, talking about this project or that project. How do you want to pursue this? What do you want to do on that? So I don't see it as those 2 months was the only transition. I'm still, working into the office now. But it was nice to have and be in the office for those 2 months.
Yeah, you guys kind of had an opportunity there that maybe some other people who weren't involved in the city's politics or with the mayor might not have had. So up next on 22 News in Focus, we'll talk about the issues each mayor faces in their city. So stay with us. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Welcome back to 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking with the two recently elected mayors here in Hampden County, Mayor Brian Sullivan of Westfield and Mayor William Reichelt of West Springfield. So what are the top issues that both of your cities face and that you really want to address as mayor? We'll start with.
I think traffic has been a big issue. Regardless of what door I was knocking, traffic always came up. And in a sense, it's because West Springfield is a cut-through community. People are coming from Westfield and the hill towns to go to Springfield and the Holyoke Mall. And other people are coming the other way to go to Westfield and the hill towns. So we're kind of in the middle in the sense where you have Route 20, Memorial, Riverdale, Dewey. They're all really high traffic areas. So traffic is going to be a big concern.
How about, while we're on the topic of traffic, the Route 5 rotary, it seems like, or the Memorial Ave Bridge and the
yeah,
Route
it's sort of
5
Route 5
rotary.
there, yeah. It's
Right.
almost done. They say apparently it's not going to be done until the spring. I don't know what they have left. It looks done. So it's exciting that it's finished. It's unfortunate that it took longer than we thought, but I guess that's construction, and that's what I'm learning, through the job. The construction always takes longer. But it looks done, and it's handling the traffic better.
Is there any way you could push, or have you thought of, I know you're fairly new on the job, so have you thought of in the future with problems like this, pushing Mass DOT to get it done faster, pushing the contractor? Is there anything you can do as mayor when you hear the concerns of people about this traffic?
Well, a big thing we can do is work closer with our legislators who have that connection with DOT out in Boston to try to say, hey, when you're making delays and you're doing these things, you need to let the community know and the businesses know, because they kind of plan all their events around when you think it's going to be done. For example, the Rotary with the Big E, they told the Big E it would be done before the fair. It ends up being done after the fair. So that is big, not even just for the fair, but the other events they have going on. Someone from out of state, out of New England comes in, the road's closed, they have no idea where to go. Us, we can just shoot around and go through Springfield. But someone who's not familiar with the area, and maybe their GPS isn't up to par, may get lost and may get frustrated. So that's going to hurt our business community.
Right, so pushing state lawmakers to push DOT.
Yeah, and they have been, and I think Rep. Finn did an interview recently over DOT, kind of letting the contractor, who is actually also the contractor for the Route 20 bridge further down, which was also delayed, kind of encouraging DOT to have a closer look and make sure these things get done on time, or at least notify us what's actually going on and if any way we can help.
All right, and so let's go back to the original question. What are some of the big issues?
The easy answer to that is the budget, and it being January, we're starting to look at it. As a matter of fact, met with department heads this week to start talking about that, because we heard on the campaign trail taxes and potholes and schools. Those are the three biggest things in Westfield. Is probably in every city around here. And it's all going to start and come around based on what we do with the budget. So that's going to be the next couple months, is a lot of discussion on where we're spending money and how we're going to save or do things different with our money this time around. So it's a great process to start now, because by the end of June we're going to have to kick in and do another one.
And it kind of seems silly just by saying the word pothole, but it really is an issue that people care about both in Westfield and West Springfield.
I think everywhere in New England.
Everywhere.
I
But those two communities in particular, at least in the news, we hear a lot about.
Westfield's vocal about it. That's what it is.
Right, and the Route 5 road work was all to try to permanently repair the potholes. So how important is that for you guys to make sure that there's money in the budget to constantly be repairing it? Is that something that the city does, or is it a state thing?
Both. So there's Chapter 90 monies come from the state based on the roads and streets you have in your city. But it's a city thing in regards to a management plan, and that's something I'm looking at, and I promised I would do, and I'm going to stick to that, is put together a plan of action so that we're not just driving around filling potholes. Those days are done, because it doesn't work, and we all know it doesn't work. So there's got to be planning and 5-year, 10-year plans to do that. And ultimately, it's financial. It takes money to do that. But if you plan correctly, we have a lot of roads like West Springfield does. There's a lot of streets in Westfield. And where do you start? How do you finish? And that's the process I'm going through right now. So.
This winter seems like it's been nice so far for that. Not too much snow. The plows aren't, really destroying the road yet. So, do you have anything in the budget already built in for the end of this budget year that you can use for that?
Based on last year's budget, there's snow and ice monies in there. It usually gets dried up very quickly because of the winters we have. Now, we've been extremely lucky with Mother Nature. So it's one of those things, you know what, it's January, mid-January now. It doesn't have to snow. We can cancel it for the rest.
I agree.
Would be great, because that money's, it's always tough to budget for Mother Nature. Right now, she's cooperating well with the budget, but you have to have that money in there because public health and safety is part of it, and that's the removals. And
the severity of the winter depends on how bad the potholes are going to be in the spring too. Right. The more salt you put in the road, the more freeze and thaw there is, the bigger the holes get. So we're kind of really dependent on that. I think we all have money left in our road maintenance money left in our budget to kind of deal with that as it comes. Of course, in the winter you can't do as much with it. You cold patch it, and in the warmer weather you hot patch it. You kind of at least get rid of the ones that are big and the roads that are well traveled, and kind of take the ones off afterwards. So it's tough. But actually, West Springfield, before Mayor Sullivan left, bought a new pothole repair truck, which hopefully should be here in the spring, which will be exciting.
We're doing the same thing. It's an infrared repair machine. Instead of just putting the gravel in and watching it come out as soon as the car is, it literally will cut away the road and basically melt a new piece in there and fix it, as opposed to trying to just Band-Aid it. So.
All right, we'll have to see if that works. Speaking of roads, Route 20, it's a dangerous road. It cuts through both communities. During the break, we were just talking about how it might be different in Westfield and West Springfield. It was deadly in the past few weeks. 3 or 4 people died, I believe, on the West Springfield side. So what are you doing to make sure that that road is safer for people?
Well, part of it is enforcing speed limits we have now, although I can tell you none of the accidents this weekend were speed related. They were all distracted driving related. So while it is a dangerous stretch road in the sense that people drive faster than they should, it's also a part where we need to focus on encouraging people to get off their cell phones or focus on driving while they're driving. The corner they had was a corner that DOT was concerned with from the beginning, and we've actually talked with District 2, and even before that, on the Thursday before these accidents happened, I had a meeting with a traffic and safety committee that I've developed. And we talked about generally crosswalk safety and traffic concerns throughout town, and that stretch of road came up. Unfortunately, there's nothing we could do in 2 days, but we had talked about it, had talked about maybe, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna put it down to 2 lanes? I've had residents ask, could we put a guardrail up? It's really gonna fall on DOT because it's their road, it's a state road, and it's their money that's gonna go into it. But we're definitely, and I think Mayor Sullivan can echo that, concerned about the safety of Route 20.
As far as the speeding problem, any thoughts of putting more police officers there? Do you have that in the budget to
We do, and we've had officers out there recently, especially now, and the chief has told me because it's getting cold, to try to remind people speeds can't be the same in the winter with ice. But we also bought, and this was before I took over, but former Mayor Sullivan bought a speed warning light, like the thing that you set up, and it shows you how fast you're going. We have one already, but the new one we've bought is going to be able to record speeds and times. So we can put that out throughout town and collect some data to decide how we're going to enforce the speeds, where we're going to put a limited number of officers to have the most effect throughout the town.
All right, and on the Westfield.
We're actually literally talking to DOT right now in regards to putting up another light. And we have a business in town, Shortstops, newly opened restaurant with gym and everything, where the owner is looking to build other business behind there. And it's making DOT come out and look at the traffic patterns and traffic counts to see if it would constitute putting in a street light. And as of right now, it does. It's just again a matter of finances and things like that. It's built around the money, and if we can do it, and that we feel it coincides with the other lights that are on the street, so it actually is cutting down some speeding. It works as a speed buffer also. Traffic flow is always an issue, so more lights cause other problems, but you take what you can right now and to help the business, because right now you can't get out of those businesses on the side because there's so much traffic on that street.
And have you heard from people in the city they're supportive of this?
Very
new light?
supportive of it. Yeah. Well, so both the light and the business that would potentially go in there. And if we don't get the light, the business can't happen because it just is a nightmare there. So, we're looking to bring in new business and stuff, and if we can get the light and the cooperation from the state,
and we're right over the border there too, so that would be awesome.
It's definitely a community thing.
All right, we'll talk more about economic development and public safety and other issues with both mayors when we come back. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking with Mayor Brian Sullivan of Westfield and Mayor William Reichel of West Springfield. We were just talking about public safety a little bit on the roads in both cities. Let's continue our conversation about public safety. Both of you have a unique environment in your community. You have Barnes Air National Guard Base, high security. You have the Big E that attracted more than 1 million people last year. You need security there as well. So what's in place in both of your communities when it comes to making sure that everyone is safe, whether it's a National Guard base or an enormous fair? Yeah,
I know. Up at the airport, I can tell you, we're actually we've had a lot of meetings back and forth over the years with the Guard, and because the Barnes Airport itself is actually owned by the city, so there's a little bit of both up there as far as air transportation goes. And it's never been an issue in regards to public health and safety, but they are now, the Air National Guard, looking to build even a tighter entrance so that it's more secure. There's more cameras and more things, because the world we live in right now, you have to do that. So it's kind of a process that you have to go through now. But the cooperation with the Guard, Westfield loves the Guard. They'll stay, and we have events. The Westfield Police will be out in the street and things like that, directing traffic and things like that. And on base is up to the Guard.
How about the economic impact of Barnes on the city? It must be huge, right?
Well, that's a great question, because in 18 months we'll be having an air show there, and the economic impact of that is really big. But that only comes once every 4 or 5 years. Annually, the money that the Guard and the airport put back into the city has been measured, and it's a big number, because they live in Westfield, they eat, they fill up their gas tanks, there's taxes off the petroleum and things on Guard things. So the spin-off of that is big, and Westfield understands that. Over time, we've always been scared of closures and things like that in regards to the Air National Guard and the federal taking over and closing it. And every time they look at Barnes, it's one that's run smoothly, and it's very important. And we've outlived the closures, so we're pretty lucky up there.
And is there any concern to the rest of the city when it comes to safety because the base is located there? I know they recently elevated to level Bravo,
right.
With the fears around the world. Do people?
Yeah, I got to be honest. I don't think that ever really comes up. I think people feel safer that it's there. Quite honestly, it's reaction, and we hear it. Literally hear it. So some people have issues with noise, but in regards to safety and things like that, there's never been any problem. And you stand on the ground and watch the planes fly over you, you're pretty impressed. So it's not really an issue that's come up.
Okay, well, let's talk about the Biggie and, just the grounds itself. Like you said before, there are fairs and shows there all of the time. So what kind of security problems does that pose potentially for West Springfield?
I think any real security problems, if there were problems, would come up during the Biggie when there's such a significant number of people, not just associated with a horse show or a dog show, but just people from everywhere come. And we do have a significant special police presence, so we bring on essentially auxiliary police officers that work throughout the year and are trained, but we bring on more during the fair, and the fair has been a great partner to work with, creating a security plan. This past year, they brought on their own additional security staff. This year is the centennial anniversary, 100 years. So it's going to be ongoing discussions to make sure we're ready for that. And unfortunately, with what's going on in the world, but that's, it's always going on in the world. So we have dedicated police. We will be ready. We have partners in Agawam because they also see a significant amount of people and traffic that cut through too. So it's definitely a concern, but it's not something that is out of the ordinary, and they too are a huge economic development partner and bring a lot of people and bodies that come to West Springfield, pay to park in West Springfield, get fast food in West Springfield, shop along the Memorial Plazas. So it's a good partner, and it's definitely something that we always keep in mind, and we're always ready to help, and they're also ready to help in return. And
are there any downsides for people living in West Springfield because of the Biggie? Traffic, of course, might be a negative, but anything else you've heard from people?
I would say besides traffic, there's not much of a concern. Again, that's really only 2-3 weeks out of the year. I mean, it is a concern, especially for the businesses that don't see the amount of people come over during the Biggie because of the traffic and the road closures and the amount of people that are just going into the Biggie. But for the rest of the year, people just think the Biggie Fair when they think Eastern States Exposition. Mm-hmm. But almost every weekend they got something booked, so they're bringing in people from all parts of the country. And we have over 10 hotels, I think, in West Springfield that see a direct economic benefit from all those people being there. We wouldn't have so many hotels if not for the Eastern States. And even Springfield utilizes our hotels because they don't want to build more in the sense that we have enough rooms available in West Springfield. So we're lucky in that sense, and without the Biggie, we wouldn't have the hotels. We probably wouldn't have as much developed along the Memorial Corridor. And we are the cut-through community, crossroads in New England. We get all the people coming down 90-91. So it's an easy access. It's a great spot. Provides a lot for West Springfield.
And how about economic development in general for both cities? Of course, that's huge. You mentioned a little bit earlier about the new restaurant only relying on those lights being built. What else is in store for both cities for new businesses, and how will you work to attract new places to come to Westfield and West Springfield?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do, and I talked about this along the campaign trail, is zoning and permitting, making sure that we have the right zones in the right places that will attract the right businesses. And then once we do that, and it's something that we already started looking at with our planning department, and another thing is I've asked all department heads to submit rules, regulations, policies so we can create the playbook that I've talked about to make sure that if a new business or even a resident or someone interested in government comes in, talks to department heads and looks to get permitting done, they get consistent answers and a flow chart that they can follow to make sure it's as smooth as process as possible. Because part of it is we can only do so much showing people where land is available and encouraging them to develop, provide tax credits if possible. They're the ones that have to make that investment. And it's the public-private partnership that really drives that development. So we do get, and when you think Riverdale Road, 99% full all the time, very little vacancy, because the traffic's there. The people are there that are going to shop at those places. So as long as we have that and then zones that encourage that development, we should be good. There's very little open land in West Springfield.
I guess that's a good sign, right?
Absolutely.
And how about Westfield?
I agree. You mentioned about public and private cooperation and things, and that's what's happening in Westfield too, is the private money is starting to come through, and people are investing downtown, just a little, but it's right on the cusp of getting big, and when we can do things that the government side can do, especially on a local level, but we're asking for state or federal monies to help us out too. If we can pull things like that together, the private money will come to bolster. So it's slowly happening. We had a couple of new companies up, businesses up at the airport, and then we're getting feelers every day about our downtown, and we just had 99 restaurant go, and I know that's not one to just sit and celebrate, but it's been packed since it opened up, and we're thinking that the next one is stimulus off of that. So as these new companies are coming in, they're doing well. People are paying attention, and that's what will drive some of the private money. And there's some people that have put in a lot of money and effort downtown to start that process. So I give them a lot of credit because they stepped forward when we needed them to.
And as far as small businesses, any incentives for them to come in, maybe tax breaks or whatever for downtown areas?
There's always that potential, and that's where I say the state and the federal money help too, because there's grants and there's things like that the government side can do, or at least assist with. And it's looking at all those options to make them work, together with the private money to put something up so that we can get them down. There's tax incentives, there's sewer and wastewater and all the other things that go along with it too. So it's a long process, but one that you can get through if you pay attention to it.
Anything else?
And a lot of it too is private business wants to make sure that the government's going to be consistent with how they enforce the rules and regulations before they make an investment, and then all of a sudden realize, oh, you don't have enough parking here, which is always an issue, or I can't have that sign, which is always an issue.
Right.
So they want to make sure everything's clear for them, so they know before going in that they're going to be able to come out with a profitable business, because no one's in it to lose money. So as long as you can build that in to begin with, they're more than happy to make the investment, as long as they see that there's profit in it for them.
That's right.
All right.
I agree.
Okay, next we'll talk about education in both cities. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking with Mayor Brian Sullivan of Westfield and Mayor William Reichelt of West Springfield. You know, one of the hot topics right now around the world is immigration. We're seeing millions, or at least hundreds of thousands of people flee war-torn areas of Syria and other parts of the Middle East. They're trying to find a better life, and some are coming to Western Massachusetts. West Springfield already has a large Russian and Eastern European population in the Merrick section of the city, and Westfield has a center for people to come and become citizens and work that process as refugees. So I'd like to hear your opinions and your thoughts on this refugee crisis going on right now. That is kind of a controversial topic, especially in this presidential year.
I think we use the word crisis to describe almost everything, so we use it a little too much. We have an opiate crisis, a refugee crisis. But for West Springfield, the refugees, the new Americans as we call them, are a huge asset. They bring a lot of new culture to the town. We have our school, Coburn, is one of the best performing schools in the area, even though they speak 33 different languages there. The kids, they just did a presentation at the first school committee meeting last Monday, reading English with this new Imagine Learning program they use, a computer-based English as a second language program. They love it. They're doing really well. So it's exciting to see that, and exciting to see how many people are able to come from wherever their culture is and they couldn't live there because of whatever reason, war or famine or anything, and succeed here in West Springfield. It really kind of puts West Springfield on the map. And the Merrick section is a great area and has developed, we began, you mentioned Russians and Eastern Europeans, and now it's turning over to Turkish and now more Middle Eastern populations, and really depends on what's happening in the world to see what kind of cultures we get. But families come over and they bring relatives over, and it really kind of develops, and you see it along Main Street in the businesses, the new authentic food places that pop up in the shopping areas. It's really interesting. It really provides more of a diverse atmosphere along our downtown.
And does everyone seem welcome to all of this?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, how about Westfield?
I agree with a lot of what he said. Our schools obviously have been affected by the Russian and the Slovak and Ukrainian kids, and they're all doing very well. And those families stick together because they want to succeed. And some of the businesses you talk to in town will tell you that when they get applications from some of these individuals, they'll hire them right away because they're hard workers. They want to be working, and they're very proud people. They just, unfortunately, for whatever reason, have come over here and trying to make a life for themselves. They haven't been, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that's probably the hardest part is You know, trying to, you know, in 2 weeks I haven't gotten my head wrapped around the whole issue at this point. But there's, you know, there's public health and safety issues that people jump to, and you said crisis and things like that. And it's probably not a fair word at this point because I don't think we know what, you know, totally what we have or what we could have. So some of the things that these people are willing to do and the way they work is an asset, a big asset to the city.
And so let's talk about education. You both touched on that with these students being in schools in the city. So you both have a new high school, you have a new president at Westfield State University. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about education in your city. How much of the tax money, you don't have to give me a figure, but is it a good percentage of the city's taxes that goes to education?
Yeah, it's almost half the budget, about 46 or 7%. It goes to schools. So it's really, when you look at it, you have the municipal side and the school side. They're almost like two different government entities in themselves. And they kind of operate that way, and the mayor kind of oversees two of them. So you really can't talk about one without the other because a huge percent of our tax dollars goes to our schools. But again, good schools mean a good community. A business may not want to come to a school or a town if the schools aren't doing well because it kind of looks like the management of the town may not be as good as it could be, which wouldn't bode well for the atmosphere for businesses later on. So really go hand in hand. And you know, we are lucky we have a new high school, we have a new superintendent, a lot of new principals. So we've had a lot of turnover the past couple of years. So I'm looking forward to work with the new team to keep moving our schools forward and improving our education overall.
Any specific plans that you have that you really want to focus on when it comes to schools in West Springfield?
Well, the big thing is, and I'm still working with our administrators now because I didn't have as much insider information working as the town attorney as I did on the municipal side. So working with the superintendent, the administrators, and teachers to figure out really replicating what works and bring it to schools that need to improve. So as I said before, Coburn, level 1 school, 33 different languages. How can we see what's working there besides just maybe improved funding because language is an issue, and make it work at our schools that are level 3s and level 2s.
And how about Westfield with students in town, not the college yet?
Yeah, well, I was going to say we have a new president up at Westfield State University, but we're also going to be having a new superintendent. The current one will be retiring at the end of the school year, so we'll be starting new in fiscal 17. So taking advantage of timing with this is one of those things. We have a need for an elementary school that we've been planning on for a few years, and eventually we will get that done because of the student population that needs that, because they're lacking in some of the technology areas and things because of the old buildings that we have that are schools now. We need the new structure, but also there's Westfield Voc Tech has started a new program, the aviation program, and it's really something that's putting Westfield on the map nationally, because there's only 2 programs like this across the country, and it's taking advantage of Barnes. We talked earlier about that, but it's also, I give so much credit to the principal and the superintendent and those that are involved with starting this program, and the business community that's also lent their hands, because as these kids graduate, they're getting jobs right out of the chute. So they're good jobs, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year careers that these kids are starting. So we're really excited about that, and it's only going to grow as we learn how to mix the airport and the schools together in the business community. But it's a great opportunity to take advantage of some excitement.
And how about Westfield State University? That seems like it was a long process, an expensive process for them to find a new president. What will the city's interactions be with the new president of Westfield State?
I hope very strong, and we've already met. But one of the things that Westfield has always wanted is the college to become part of the city. And we just had a program done with some students up there that they did a presentation to the mayor's office in regards to students up at Westfield State, how they feel in our city. And there's a lot of disconnect. They feel like, you know, Westfield, the city, doesn't embrace them and want them there, and yet the college doesn't embrace our residents. So there's just a disconnect that I've already talked about putting together a group, kind of a half college, half resident, and start mending some fences. And I'm not sure if it's mending fences, but more just a open communication of what can the college do downtown, so to speak, and what can the city do for the college, because they're right, they're part of our culture up there, so it's something we need to take advantage of. So to answer your question, I'm looking for the college to really become a close neighbor in Westfield.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about your goals and your plans for the next year and 2 years from now. But for now, you're watching 22 News in Focus. We'll be right back.
2 years.
You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we've been talking with two of the region's newest mayors, Mayor Brian Sullivan of Westfield and Mayor William Reichelt of West Springfield. We've been talking about what's going on right now in both cities, the key issues for both of you. But let's talk about the grander scheme of things. You guys have 2 years now to plan, develop, and do stuff. I know voters always want to see you do things. So what are those priorities that you really have planned for the next 2 years in office?
I think one of the good things I have, and to answer that question, is during the campaign I ran on the 5-point plan, and that's what we're going to do in the next 2 years. Really, it's maintaining a approachable, accessible, accountable administration, having a safe community, and something we didn't touch on is handling the opioid addiction problems we have, investing in strong schools, kickstarting business development, and then also fighting blight, which is just continuing to invest in infrastructure and making sure we can handle our traffic, and then also cleaning up bank-owned homes around town. So that's really, in a nutshell, what we're going to do. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff, a lot of other projects that are going on. I have a board full of stuff, and I talk through department heads now of all the other things that have been started that we need to finish, other issues that pop up. I mean, you can have the grand plan, but there's always going to be in the day-to-day issues you're dealing with, small problems, grand opportunities you have to take advantage of. So that's to encapsulate what we're going to plan to do over the next 2 years, and I hope to accomplish. But there's also all kinds of other things that are going to pop up in between. And
in order to accomplish those, do you have certain committees that you're forming right now? How are you going to actually implement all of those proposals?
A lot of it's going to build off of the people and the committees we already have in town, but I've also promised to create a business advisory committee, and that will help to look at all our ordinances, review our policies, and build that playbook. And also, I'm trying to put together a blight task force to handle kind of not just the vacant houses, but the houses that need a little attention to make sure that our community looks as good as it is.
And how about in Westfield for the next 2 years?
Yeah, I know this sounds like campaign rhetoric, but I ran on this, collaboration, cooperation, and communication, and we've already started doing that. I instituted actually a mayor's briefing half hour before each city council meeting. I'll be going in front of the council to explain the communications from the mayor that are on the agenda, just to give them an idea of what's coming into council and why, and what my plans are, or the reason why I have that. We've done one already. It went over very well. There was a lot of back and forth communication, and some of the things got passed, pretty easily. And that's the part, is the collaboration and cooperation. The business community has stepped up. They are itching to help out. I noticed during the campaign, and I've kept doing it, is they just want to be asked. They want to help. They want to do something. But if you can find places to niches that they have, they're ready to help. And there's a lot of things, like the mayor said, there's so many things that will come up during the next 2 years that you didn't even anticipate, that you're going to need help with, and you're going to need cooperation out from the residents and the business community to make it happen. In this summer, we're hosting the World Series for Babe Ruth. And people are stepping up big time to volunteer, because you need people to take tickets and collect money and things like that. But the city council also stepped up and approved some money to fix the fields and things like that. So it's a complete citywide event, and everybody's really excited to do it. And they're also coming forward and putting themselves out there to help. So it's there's a lot to do in 2 years, and we were just talking about re-elections, and you only have a 2-year term and things, but you can get a lot done in 2 years if you plan it appropriately. And I hope both of us are going down that path where you can talk to us in 2 years and say, yeah, we completed some of the things that we actually set out to do.
Yeah, and it's okay to have challenges, right? It helps you grow, and it helps
Absolutely.
you figure out what's going on in the city. So have you noticed any challenges that maybe weren't expected so far? It's only been about 2 weeks, so.
Some of the, you're going to laugh, but some of the easiest things that come over your desk and you sit and go, really? That's something we haven't been able to do? You know, just even holiday events. You know, we just had Christmas, and there's Christmas things that didn't get done this year because of the transition from Mayor Knappich to myself, and now we have Easter coming up, and it's things like you sit back and go, I thought that just happened, but it's not. It's planning, and there's no money in the budget to do anything like that, and things like that. So that's sometimes some of the toughest things is what you think was simple isn't, and then you turn around and you pass $1 million bond or something that you thought was going to be difficult, but everybody actually was on the same page and it got done, and so it's crazy sometimes.
Learning things each day, right?
A lot of the times that we've both had experience in government, so we've been lucky in that sense. But a lot of times the bigger things that you think are hard are actually easy, and the smaller things that everyone is able to get their head around becomes a project. And maybe, unfortunately, it's a side effect of government, but that's one thing you look in and go, well, we can't just do this?
Yeah.
So, no, we have to do this and that first. And you think that some of these events just happen, and you realize there's this whole team of people that have to put it together. And
then you have legal on your, on your phone because you got to check to see what you're doing. Is that right? Is that wrong? Can we get in trouble? So it's sometimes just bureaucracy, but it's things you have to check on.
And sometimes it's good to move slower because you pick up other things too. You don't always want to rush.
Right. Yeah. That's a good That's a good look at the world, I guess. A good, yeah. Do you plan on talking, or have you yet talked to the former mayors? You both had good relationships with Mayor Knappich and Mayor Sullivan. Do you plan on continuing that relationship and asking for help, or do you want to kind of separate from that and do your own thing?
I have talked to Mayor Sullivan. He is he told me when I was beginning to run, like a driver and a 3-iron across his business Sullivan paper from the town hall. So we do talk frequently, and he's been a great asset. Even simple questions that, coming from that office, I'm not sure about, political questions, event questions, that he's more than happy to answer.
Yeah, both. I'm mayor now, so there's a lot of things that I want to do and go through the process and figure out by myself, but I'd be silly not to inquire about why did he start this or what was happening with that. And again, as unique as everything I've done so far as mayor, I now have him as a city councilor sitting there having to take votes on things. So we're constantly talking. Me and Dan are friends anyways, from way back. But you'll learn there's an awful lot of people that you confide in and ask questions to, and it's people that I always say the best way to go over a barbed wire fence is over someone's back. So these guys have been through it before. Why not ask their advice and check with how they did things? And
we're both lucky in the sense that it wasn't adversarial against the former mayor.
That's right.
Right, you came in nice and smooth knowing the mayor before you.
That's right.
All right, thank you gentlemen so much, and we'll be right back with our last word. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You've been watching 22 News in Focus this Sunday. Today we've been talking with two of the region's newest mayors, Westfield Mayor Brian Sullivan and West Springfield's Mayor William Reichelt, and how they're planning for their communities in the next few years, as well as the key issues that they have to deal with as people in neighboring communities to each other. So that's our program for today. We want to thank our guests for joining us, and thank you at home for watching. If you missed any of it, you can watch it in full on our website at wwlp.com. From all of us here at 22 News, we wish you a wonderful Sunday.